go. Here we go. Here we go. Welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. This is the two best words in sports edition of the Format Podcast. So with all that said, let's get right to it. What are the two best words in sports? Are they Super Bowl? For a lot of people, maybe they are. Are they Final Four? If you're a diehard college basketball fan, I guess. I don't know how many diehard college basketball fans are left, but it's possible. Are they gold medal? If you're an Olympic sport athlete, could be. You work 4 years to get to that. Is it World Cup? For the majority of people on the face of this planet who are sports fans, yeah, that's quite possible. But nah, none of those are the best two words in sports, at least not for me and not for most American or North American sports fans. The two best words in sports are quite literally Game 7. Hockey, baseball, and basketball all have 7-game playoff formats that obviously, if the two teams are even at 3 games apiece in a best-of-7 series where first to 4 victories is the winner, Game 7 is that ultimate matchup. Game 7s are where legends are made. This one, I'm talking about Game 7s in the NBA. And I'm gonna talk about, obviously, if you're watching this on Monday, then you know who won the 2 Game 7s on Sunday. But if not, then you know there's 2 Game 7s today. First between the Celtics and the Bucks. Of course, the Celtics would be in a Game 7 on their floor in Boston, right? The most legendary franchise in NBA history, the winner of the most Game 7s in NBA history, would have a Game 7 in their building. Doesn't get any better than that. The second Game 7, the best team in the league all season, the Phoenix Suns, taking on the upstart Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic, who's looking to carve another notch on his belt en route to becoming a legend, right? So what do we got here? We've got 2 amazing games. If you're listening on Monday, you already know what happened. I don't know what happened yet because I'm recording this on Sunday morning. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the all-time great Game 7 performances before I get to these specific Game 7s. And I'm not really going to talk too much about the losing efforts. There have been a lot of great performances in Game 7s that were losing efforts. There's a couple I'm going to touch on, but for the most part, I'm going to leave those alone because, hey, well, why don't I let Herm tell you?
Hello? You play to win the game.
But going back to even before the merger, because there was basketball before the merger, yes, and there was some great basketball before the mergers. Yes, I know, right? Some all-time great players before the merger. Yes, Bruce, okay, there was basketball before the merger. But seriously, 1962 NBA Finals, Bill Russell, Game 7. This stat line is insane. 30 points and 40 rebounds, 14 of 17 from the free throw line. Now, I get it. At that point, the league only had, I think, 8, maybe 10 teams. The Celtics were winning darn near every year. In 1962, they were right in the middle of that 8-game streak that will never be broken. Not necessarily because those Celtics were the best teams of all time, but because of, free agency. You have more teams in the league now. So obviously, nobody's going to win 8 straight titles, right? The only team that probably maybe had the chance to have done that would have been Michael Jordan's Bulls. And obviously he left in the middle of the 2 3-peats, but we'll never know. Anyway, yeah, Bill Russell, 30 points, 40 rebounds, 14 of 17 from the free throw line. I get it. Celtics had the majority of the best players. But here's the thing, right? Bill Russell, and we always talk about it. Yeah, he doesn't have the greatest stats necessarily in comparison to today's players. Obviously, completely different game back then. But we got to think about this. This dude is clearly the greatest winner of all time. He never, ever, let me say it again, never, ever lost a Game 7 in his career. Game 7, where legends are made. Jerry West, the guy we call Mr. Clutch, the guy who's on the NBA logo. Ironically, we call him Mr. Clutch. He's 1-8 in the NBA Finals. He gave it everything he had. But the same way I go at LeBron for being 4-10 in the NBA Finals, got to give it to Jerry West for being 1-8. As great as he was, couldn't get it done. Probably should not be the NBA logo. NBA logo should probably be the Jumpman, but I think Nike owns that. Or it should be maybe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the sky hook. But maybe that's another topic for another episode. I'll think about that. Anyway, back to Jerry West. 1969 NBA Finals Game 7. You can't ask, I don't think, for any more in a losing effort than 42 points, 13 rebounds, 12 assists, 14 for 18 from the line, 14 for 29 from the field. Like, what else could he have done? I mean, and that's something you hear from the LeBron apologists a lot. Well, what else could he have done? Yeah. So all-time great efforts in Game 7s. This is pre-merger. All right, coming forward, 1993 Western Conference Finals. I remember watching this game, and a lot of people look at Charles Barkley now on the TNT set with Ernie and Shaq. They see an old guy who's fat, who's just up there, talking what they think is junk. But Barkley, even though he never won a title, and that's going to haunt him forever, and that's always going to knock him in terms of how he's perceived as an all-timer, is one of the best players ever. And arguably the best player never to win a championship. Maybe him, Karl Malone, somewhere in there. But in the Game 7 of the 93 Western Conference Finals, which set up the matchup with the Suns and the Bulls, and that was at the tail end of Barkley's MVP season, 44 points, 24 rebounds, 12 of 20 from the field, 19 of 22 from the free throw line. Just an absolute monster game, dominated Sean Kemp. Just incredible. People don't realize, if they didn't see, just how great Charles Barkley was. Big game, James Worthy, 1988 NBA Finals Game 7 over the Pistons. That was the Pistons' first run to the championship. And obviously we know that Isaiah Thomas, he had that legendary game in Game 6 where he was playing on the badly sprained ankle and couldn't get much done in Game 7. But regardless, this is not about him. This is about James Worthy and his legendary performance, pretty much cementing the big game James moniker with a 36 point, 16 rebound, 10 assist triple-double. And that put the game away for the Lakers and gave them their 5th championship since Magic Johnson entered the league in 1979. Just an incredible performance from James Worthy. All right. Walt, Clyde, Frazier, 1970 NBA Finals. If you're in New York and you can watch the Yes Network, MSG, can't remember what it is, but you see Walt Clyde Frazier looking like he's still trapped in the 70s with all his crazy suits on and whatnot. But the guy was a heck of a basketball player. And in 1970, when the Knicks won their first NBA championship, Game 7, he scored 36 points, 7 rebounds, and 19 assists in that game. 12 for 12 from the line, 12 of 17 from the field. Just an incredible game. I believe that was the game where Willis Reed limped back onto the court. And Willis, that game gets all the hype for Willis Reed limping back onto the court. Legendary NBA moment, but Walt Frazier was really the one who put that game away with his incredible play. All right. Allen Iverson, 2001 Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7. 44 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 17 of 33 from the field, 6 of 7 from the stripe, 4 of 6 from 3. Allen Iverson, what's one of the things that was so amazing about this dude? At that time, the NBA was still physical. And this is a guy who is consistently crashing the lane, attacking the basket. This was not the NBA that we see now where teams are shooting on average 40 plus 3-point attempts per game. He was consistently going to the line, and they were putting that guy on the floor because he was generally the smallest guy on the floor, but he kept getting up and he kept coming and kept handing out work. Allen Iverson, absolutely incredible. And then I think he had the 40 plus in Game 1 of the NBA Finals in the immortal step over Ty Lue moment. But the Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals that put the Philadelphia 76ers, and that was not a great Sixers team at all, into the NBA Finals. 44, 6, 7, and 2 steals. Just incredible performance by Allen Iverson. Now, I'm not a LeBron guy, but you got to be objective here. Statistically, he's one of the best Game 7 performers ever. And so, like most lists in NBA history, it's going to be hard to keep LeBron off of them. His 2018 Conference Finals Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals Game 7 35 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, 12 of 24 for the field. He just got it done. He's, again, statistically one of the best Game 7 performers in NBA history. So we just look at that and we say, all these great performances, Game 7s are where legends are made. We love to see him. And, so we have the two today. Now, Game 6 of the Celtics and Bucks series this season, that actually had a Game 7 feel, obviously, because had the Celtics lost, their season would have been over and the Bucks would have been going on to the next round to continue trying to defend their championship. What did we see in Game 6 that was so amazing? We saw Jason Tatum we saw a lot in the first round, a lot of maybe early coronation of Jason Tatum as being a superstar in this league. And his series so far against the Bucks hasn't been the greatest, but he came up huge in maybe the biggest game of his career so far. Man, maybe not. A couple of years ago, he had a Game 7 where the Celtics could have gone on to the NBA Finals. They didn't get there. But this was one of the biggest games of his career so far. And he came up huge, 46 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And the thing about it is, a lot of those points, they weren't necessarily early. They were key. Clutch basket after clutch basket down the stretch, holding off Giannis and holding off the Bucks, who kept making runs to get back in this game. Speaking of Giannis, in that game, he had 44, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, and apparently he's the first player in NBA history to post that stat line in a playoff game. 40-plus points, 20 or more rebounds, and 6 or more assists. Crazy, right? Giannis, he gets it done on all fronts. He just keeps coming. He is relentless. And I think he also has 3 40-point games in this series. So if he adds another one, that's probably going to be another record. So we saw an incredible shootout, incredible duel. And that leads us up now to the Game 7, obviously winner take all, win or go home, Celtics and Bucks. And definitely looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be an incredible matchup. You got to wonder, though, do those guys, obviously Tatum and Giannis being the respective leaders of their teams, do they have enough left in the tank? I know it sounds like, the typical talking head speech, but realistically, to come back out with another game like that, probably not. You usually don't see games like that back to back. What you'll see is both of those guys will have another really good game, but somebody else has to come along to help carry their teams. So that's what we're looking for there. And what I immediately thought about watching that game, the Game 6, was the immortal Game 7 shootout in the 1988 Eastern Conference semifinals between the Celtics and the Hawks. If you're too young to have seen that, definitely go back and YouTube it. It was crazy. If you're too young to see it and you're going back to YouTube, and one thing I'm going to recommend is that before you do that, but prepare yourself for a totally different style of play. Much more physical, a slower game, not nearly as many threes, more real offense being executed. So it won't be the NBA that you're used to watching, but trust me, it'll be tremendous. Yeah, everyone talks about how amazing that game was. Larry Bird had 34 points, including 20 in the fourth quarter. Dominique Wilkins had 47 points, including, I think, either 12 or 16 in the fourth quarter. So it was an absolute legendary shootout between two of the top small forwards of all time. And it was crazy. And to this day, people talk about it. And I think I want to say May 22nd is the anniversary of that game. Was that 34 years? Yeah, the 34th anniversary of that game, May 22nd. So I'm sure it'll be on NBA TV as one of the classic games or whatever. And it really was just an incredible matchup. And hopefully we get something like that again between the Bucks and the Celtics here today in Game 7 with Jason Tatum, another elite all-time small forward, or not yet, but a guy who's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of small forwards. And of course, Giannis, who is moving quickly his way up the all-time standings and a lot of things. Real quick side note, how do the Celtics keep getting it right at small forward? Something to think about. Havlicek, Bird, Paul Pierce, and now Jason Tatum. Like, they just keep getting it right at the small forward position. I don't know what they're doing up there, but they do a great job scouting that position. Anyway, quick note though, that game 7 shootout, the 88 Eastern Conference semis, Celtics and the Hawks I just talked about, Bird and Dominique, there were 2 unsung heroes in that game. I actually saw that game, but you get over the years, you get so much talk about Bird and Neek and what they did in that game that you don't think about it and you don't remember what other guys in that game did. And those were 2 really good teams. Obviously, Celtics all-time great. They had a lot of Hall of Famers on that roster, but you go back and look, Doc Rivers, again, not the same Doc Rivers we see as a coach. He had 16 points and 18 assists in that game. Really unsung hero for the Hawks there. Then you have Kevin Mchale, 33 points, 13 rebounds in that game for the Celtics. Another unsung hero. Like, Kevin Mchale obviously is a Hall of Famer, regarded as a top 10 power forward of all time. May even be top 5, depending on how you look at it. Probably just outside the top 5. But you look at that and you say it's just so amazing sometimes how the other guys who aren't the flashy big name stars don't get the credit despite doing what they do. So I haven't really heard anyone else talk about that. So I'm going to give those guys their flowers right now, talking about that game. Doc Rivers, 16 points, 18 assists. Kevin Mchale, 33 points, 13 rebounds. My hat's off to both of you guys. Just absolutely incredible for your contribution to an all-time great game that's in NBA history. All right, switching over from the Eastern Conference, going over to the West, you have the Suns and the Mavs in an incredible Game 7 setup, right? This one really, really interesting to me for a few reasons. Obviously, we know Phoenix has been the best team in the league all season, one of the best defensive teams, best offensive team, best record. And we know they went to the NBA Finals last season, and they lost after leading 2-0 to the eventual champ Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis, right? Okay, cool. Now, you can see they came in with the fire in their eyes, ready to get back and give it another shot at getting that title. Chris Paul, obviously, is very long in the tooth. He wants it bad. Devin Booker, he wants it bad. An incredible young player. I guess he's not that young anymore. He's been in the league like 7 or 8 years, right? He just looks and seems young, but incredible player. So now they're on the ropes, right? This series should not have been tied at 3-3. It just shouldn't have been. So you got some questions. Can Chris Paul get it done? Can Luka Doncic get it done? Luka's been carrying his team so far this series. We see he's averaging 32, almost 10 rebounds, 7.5 assists. And Luka's doing the work, right? And I like Luka a lot, but so does the media, right? A couple episodes back, I did a show called Luka. Nick Wright Loves Luka. And I was basically talking about how he was really getting ahead of himself in his evaluation of Luka and where Luka stands in the all-time pantheon of playoff performers. At that point, he had a grand total of like 7 or 8 playoff games, right? So I'm like, yo, chill, just step back, take a minute, relax. Let's not go there yet. But you got some people in the media calling him Luka Legend. You got some calling him Baby Bird. And I get where some of those comparisons are coming from. But even though he's been great so far, please, let's pump the brakes, right? Let's pump the brakes. We know that statistically he has been an all-time great playoff performer, but the sample size is very small. So let's just hold on a minute. And let's examine the comparisons real quick, right? The biggest one, you're comparing Luka to Larry Bird. Obviously, we know. Okay, he's white. He's 6'8", 6'9". He's a white player. He's got a similar body type. He's not, particularly chiseled or cut up or anything like that. You can see he doesn't spend a lot of time in the weight room. I get it. He's a trash talker once he gets going, a la Bird. Bird, known as one of the greatest trash talkers of all time. He's a great all-around player. Luka rebounds the ball. Luka passes the ball. Luka can score the ball. He's a great big shot taker and maker. We know that. I think Luka averages for his career like 26, 8, and 8, which would be crazy if he, kept on with those numbers. Now, with that said, I'm going to do it again, what I always do. A lot easier to average numbers in today's NBA. We just know that, right? We know that. The game is made for that. Still, Luka, heck of a player, right? Okay, cool. So we got a huge game 7 here. But hoops is a team game, right? Basketball is a team game. We saw in game 6, Luka Doncic got busy. However, he got help, probably the most help he's gotten all series. You had 4 Mavs, including himself, in double figures. You had Reggie Bullock, 19, Jalen Brunson, 18, Spencer Dinwiddie with 15 off the bench, and of course, Luka led the way with his 33. So now, when you get to the Mavs playing this way, the ball moving, Luka coming off it some, and everybody else contributing, we see the beautiful team game that basketball can be, and we see how dangerous the Mavericks can be. Now, that's not to say that going forward this offseason and going forward in Luka's career, if they want to keep him, they got to get him a second start. But he also has to do a better job of trusting his teammates, not trying to do it all himself. And it's amazing how we always hear that with these mercurial, talented players, right? You got to trust your teammates. Can't do it all yourself. We saw that with Michael, right? We saw that with a lot of guys. But yeah, if Luka can continue to play this way and his teammates can continue to come along with him, they got a legitimate chance to be special. And that's cool. It should be interesting to see. Oh, and also Maxi Kleber off the bench, he almost had double figures with 9 points. So you get that kind of contribution from the rest of the guys that are on that roster, and they're definitely dangerous. And of course, you know, like we said, basketball is a team game. Those guys have to show up if the Mavs want to pull the upset today. Now, let's look at the other side of this thing, okay? Chris Paul, CP3, here's an interesting historical note on this guy. He's been the leader of 4 teams to give up 2-0 series leads, and that's number 1 all time. And if he loses today, this is going to be the 5th time a team led by him has given up a 2-0 series lead. So we can look at context. We can look at the situations of those series. We can look at the rosters. We can look at the coaching, etc. And all that plays a role, right? I always talk about context. So you can't just leave it there and say, oh, Chris Paul gave up all these leads, right? But Chris Paul hasn't been on the same team for all these years. He hasn't been on the same roster. He hasn't had the same coaches. He hasn't been playing the same team all these years that his teams have given up 2-0 series leads. What am I saying when I say all that? There's a thing called the common denominator. So despite the rosters and the coaching and the situations and all of that, the common denominator is Chris Paul. And at some point, especially if the Suns lose today, we're going to have to stop giving this guy a pass and wonder what is going on. What is it about him that his teams weren't able to get over the hump despite how great a player he is and how talented he is? There's something going on there because, again, that common denominator keeps coming into play. We saw last year when he was getting ready to, well, when everyone thought he was getting ready to win the championships and the Suns were up 2-0 over Milwaukee in the finals, everyone was coronating Chris Paul. You know, they were ready to give him his flowers. He'd finally broken through. And then what? Boom, 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 boom. Giannis says, no, not yet. Reels off 4 straight, gives the 50-piece in the clincher, and the Bucks win their first championship since 74 with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Okay, great. But at some point, we got to wonder, what is it with teams led by Chris Paul? All right, I'm going to stop beating that horse. Anyway, to wrap it up, this is why we all love Game 7s. We love Game 7s. They make for amazing storylines. For those of us, of course, who appreciate the journalistic component of things, it usually gives us incredible games if you're looking just between the lines, the X's and O's, and all-time performances. They create a sense of finality after great series between 2 teams that were either evenly matched or they just played like they were. Either way, sit back, relax, and enjoy these 2 NBA Game 7s that are going to make heroes today. They're going to make legends today. Maybe they'll even make GOATs today, but not the way we think of GOATs today. All right, that's it. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for tuning in to the Format Podcast. Obviously, we're here on YouTube. And if you're watching and you haven't already, click that subscribe button in the lower right corner of your screen and click the notification bell so you know when new episodes are coming out. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, pretty much anywhere you get your audio podcast, We are there. If you look right here on the screen on YouTube, sorry, podcast listeners, if you look right there on the screen, you can see some of the locations where we are. We're at Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, whatever your platform is, we're available. You can check us out. I'd love it. Please go ahead and do that. If your podcast platform allows you to, give us that 5-star rating and leave a comment. All right. All that stuff helps us move up in the algorithm, helps us get found more easily, and helps more sports listeners like you listen to the pod. All right. If you want to reach me via social media or email, social media is at Bruce F.A. Hope, at Bruce F.A. Hope on Twitter, at The Format Podcast, at The Format Podcast on Instagram, and you can email me directly, The Format Podcast at Outlook.com, The Format Podcast at Outlook.com. All right, give me your thoughts. Also, if you'd like to, please leave a comment right here on the YouTube page. All right, thanks for checking in. Appreciate it. Enjoy those games, and I'm out. Peace.